This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 226 for December 16th, 2018. Hogwarts Radio is HPANA.com's podcast discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the Wizarding World. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out HPANA.com. Hello everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Gretchen Rush.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated.
It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday.
We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including exclusive merchandise, host vlogs, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Visit patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio to sign up today. Welcome, everybody, to episode 226. This week, we're joined by Hogwarts Radio listener Elizabeth Sarter. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's get our fandom formalities out of the way. Which house do you identify with?
On the Pottermore quiz, I'm a Hufflepuff.
Ooh.
But I probably feel like I identify more with Ravenclaw, but the quiz came out Hufflepuff, so that's my official house.
Oh, so you're a Huffleclaw.
Yeah, I feel like that I am, yes.
It's like, those mashup of names. I'm just like, why? Why do we have those? And well, because it's possible to identify with more than one house, right? So, awesome. Okay.
And I just don't like the color yellow. So, yellow is not my color. So I really needed an additional house.
You know what it is? Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and... Never mind.
But now Newt's a Hufflepuff. So, I have a new hero to aspire to with being a Hufflepuff.
There you go. He kind of gave some credibility to Hufflepuff House.
That's right. Absolutely.
And all the Hufflepuffs listening right now are just like, I'm going to kill you, Terrence. It's okay, guys. I'm not really hating on Hufflepuff. I love Hufflepuff. I have taken many assorting quizzes that identify me with Hufflepuff. They may not be correct, but they identify me with Hufflepuff. But anyway, what is your favorite Potter movie?
So my favorite movie is definitely Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Had just the most charisma, and the kids were so young, and they had this wide-eyed wonder during the film. And actually, this year, we got to take our own kids to see The Sorcerer's Stone in the theater when Cinemark had the special showings for the Back to Hogwarts Day back in September. So that was really amazing.
That is awesome. I didn't get the chance to go to the Cinemark showings, and I think that's a good way because, we have younger Harry Potter fans now that are just starting to get into the series and that are just really captivated by all the magic happening on screen. So that's wonderful that you had the opportunity to be able to take your kids there.
That was great. And we even had a friend that went with us. She made chocolate frogs in the Cine replica boxes and passed them out right at the moment when Harry and Ron get their chocolate in the Trolley Witch.
Aww.
So that was 1,000 friend points for her. And it was so magical and unforgettable. So it definitely went to my 1,000th favorite percentage of movie because of that experience.
And your favorite Harry Potter book?
So that was actually a tough one with Half-Blood Prince. I loved the idea of the pensive and finding more out about Voldemort's life. And I actually remember reading that book a few days after it was published in the US. We were on a long car trip across country, and I remember slamming the book shut and refusing to keep reading it after the Lightning Struck Tower chapter because I was just so flabbergasted by what had happened in the chapter.
That was the chapter that Snape killed Dumbledore, right?
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
I remember saying,
Spoiler alert.
No, go ahead. Yeah, spoiler alert.
Aw. Yeah, I think we were all traumatized by that chapter. What is your Patronus?
So my Patronus is an Iberian hound, and it's the best Patronus that I could have gotten. I love Iberian hounds. It's my favorite dog breed, and it's very unusual. And it's a red and white sight hound, kind of like a greyhound, and it has these amazing bat-like ears. So I really couldn't believe that when it came up as my Patronus on Pottermore.
That's so cool. You know, you got one of the cooler Patronuses. Like, I mean, other people are getting
Right?
dolphins and like horses and bears, and you know, J.K. Rowling's like a Pine Martin for hers, and then yours is an Iberian hound. That's so awesome.
Right? I know. I was so impressed. My husband's is like I was just like,
What is your favorite fantastic beast?
I love all of the flying horse type beasts.
Mhm.
So hippogriffs and the thestrals are probably a close second to those. And I've always kind of wanted a thestral keychain, but I thought it was kind of morbid to put on my person. So I haven't done that, but I love the flying fantastic beasts.
And your favorite Harry Potter memory?
I have a couple of favorite memories. My very first one is of reading the original book out loud to my little brother in 1998 when it was first published in the US, and he is 10 years younger than I am. So I was away at college and we read it together Christmas holidays when I was home.
Aw.
Yeah, it was really special. And then my most recent memories are all centered around my son, who is a Harry Potter fanatic. He read all 7 books himself last year between the ages of 9 and 10. And it was just an experience to kind of watch him go through that as a new reader.
Wow.
Actually, I had to read the last few chapters of the Deathly Hallows to him because he didn't want it to end. So he needed me to read it to him.
That's adorable. I mean, like, and that's something that we all identify with. Like, I knew I was coming towards the end of the book whenever I was reading it, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I didn't want to finish the book, but I had to find out what happened.
He couldn't do it. I had to pull the trigger, and he asked me many, many times, what is the last line in the book? And so then when we reread the last line in the epilogue, he actually cried. He was just burst into tears.
Oh.
And the next day he went to the library and checked out every companion book that he could find, and read all of those.
Wow.
And I asked him, I said, you know, what are you going to do when you've read every single companion book in the library and everything you can read about Harry Potter? You've finished all of them.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and said, I'm going to obliviate myself and start over again.
That's awesome. I love it.
So precious.
Holy cow.
So I thought that probably, you know, every Potter fan could identify with that. Like you said, just the need to wish you could just wipe your memory and get to go through all of it again.
Yeah. Oh my God. That would be amazing if we could actually do that. And relive the magic of the series, because I would love to capture that same magic as whenever I first read it. You know, it's something definitely hard to recreate. And it's like, I don't know if you can ever recreate something as magical as picking up the book for the first time, because I remember picking up the book for the first time. I remember blowing through the book, what I was doing while I was blowing through the book series. And then having to wait and go to the, you know, the midnight release parties and all that other stuff and theorizing. And I'm kind of envious of people that really get to blow through the series now. It's just like, oh my God, you're so lucky. You know, you never had to experience the wait between book 4 and book 5, or book 5 and book 6, or book 6 and book 7. You know, you could just go through it all now and get to appreciate it like that. So that's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience, I think, what, you know, with all all that's out there about Harry Potter, and it's so much more familiar in the culture than when it was first came out so many years ago, and we had all that waiting for the next. It's a really different experience, I think. But I tried to keep all the secrets. # protect the secrets. So he didn't know very much, and I wouldn't tell him. So that made it good.
Did you tell him that Newt dies in the latest Crimes of Grindelwald film, or no?
I haven't shared that yet, but maybe eventually.
Well, Elizabeth brought up a really good point when we were talking the other day. She was asking if her son could be on the show. Now, of course, most of you know that our topics are sometimes a bit more complex in nature and doesn't necessarily cater to the younger audience. But that got the wheels in my head turning. You know, as the other hosts and I have discussed, we'd really like to see if we could start something for the younger Potter community that caters specifically to them. So we're going to be working through the details of exactly what that is, and we'll be announcing something in 2019. We've had a lot of great ideas so far, bouncing things off of the wall, seeing what sticks, and we're going to be working out flushing those ideas and bringing some sort of product out to the younger Harry Potter listeners. Okay, so earlier this week, I was browsing around Reddit and found this topic. It was an interesting discussion. You know, some of them are interesting, some of them are really repetitive, but some of them get the wheels in your head turning. And this one certainly got the wheels in my head turning. The topic of the thread was, in 2005, J.K. Rowling registered a trademark for Harry Potter and the Curse of Nagini. Now, as of course, most of you know that in 2005, she was still finishing up Half-Blood Prince, the actual book. So this was a possible title for Book 7. An early indication of the Curse of Nagini, and we knew, of course, Nagini was Voldemort's snake. We didn't know necessarily that it had a curse attached to it, but I thought this was interesting. You know, kind of anticlimactic. Yeah, I mean, we can say that. But in an interview last month, I believe, she said that she had this idea of Nagini being a cursed snake for 20 years or something like that, right, Gretchen?
Yes, correct.
So this kind of solidifies that she's been thinking about this blood curse for the past 20 years. Can you imagine if Book 7 was called The Curse of Nagini?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty surprising. I have to admit that I doubted her when she said that she had it in her mind for 20 years. I read that and I doubted it. And maybe I just didn't want it to be true. I just preferred her when she was a snake, because it creates so many complications to me for her to be a person.
I think this at least makes me feel better about the fact that Nagini used to be a person, and I can get behind it now.
Yeah, I also like this, and I think it's a pretty cool title, but what confuses me is, what was the book going to be about?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I wonder that too, just reading the title, if it was going to focus more on her as, you know, almost the final Horcrux, if that was the curse, or if it actually refers to the blood curse. I didn't click on the article and read it yet, so I don't know if there's more information about that.
Would that have been given too much away, we think, for Book 7? I mean, would have opened up like a whole new can of worms about theorizing what the Curse of Nagini could be, and then people would obviously be digging into Nagini. I doubt that they would have been able to figure out that Nagini was once a woman with a blood curse. I mean, that kind of information wasn't provided in the Harry Potter series, but, you know, I can definitely imagine at least something else coming out of that. I'm glad that she didn't, you know, name it that, because it would have been a bit anticlimactic. I mean, it's the same as naming Book 5 Harry Potter and the Bird, you know, the Order of the Bird or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I also think it's interesting that if she had named it The Curse of Nagini, then would the focus have shifted more towards Neville, because he's the one that ultimately is responsible for the death of Nagini, or would that have changed if it's Harry Potter and The Curse of Nagini? So it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'd like to hear what you guys think. Send us an email or a tweet or a Facebook message. You guys know how to get a hold of us on what that could have possibly meant for the rest of the series. Well, for the remaining part of Book 7. Okay, well, we brought back the news. We haven't had it for the past 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks, ever since Crimes of Grindelwald came out. But Gretchen's managed to line up a couple of news stories for us. So, Gretchen, what do you got on deck?
Yeah, we have a few pieces of news. Some are just for fun, and some are actually pretty crazy. So, J.K. Rowling took to Twitter, as she likes to do, and she let us know that she finished the screenplay for the third Fantastic Beasts film, which is pretty exciting. And someone asked her to describe the film in 3 words, and she said, Answers are given. She mentioned Rio de Janeiro and said Rio de Janeiro had better brace itself. So I'm wondering now if the third movie is going to be set in Rio de Janeiro, which we kind of had a feeling about because it was one of those 5 languages that she tweeted back before even I think the first movie came out.
I saw that as well on Twitter. And I think that the Rio de Janeiro thing that was established also by her changing her cover photo at one point, which I'm sure that some listeners heard about, that she had changed it and then she identified the city as Rio. And she was working on the screenplay at that point. And it's hard to think of for the answers, but then my second honest response to the tweet was that I'm nervous I'm not going to like the answers. So, it's trepidation maybe.
I mean, she trolled us back in 2015 about where we might be going. 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
About where we might be going with the series in regards to location. Like, what was it? The tweet? I don't have it pulled up. Like, cinco, cinc, 5, foomph.
Yeah, someone asked how many movies it would be, and she said 5, and then she said 5 in 5 different languages, and it translated to French, English,
Italian,
either Portuguese or Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was an Asian language, but I don't remember which one.
I don't think there was. German. And what was the 5th one?
So we know that we ultimately might end up in Germany, which in 1945, there was a lot happening in Germany, at least in the Muggle world, with the Hitler regime and all that other stuff. So we know that's the year that World War II ended. So it kind of makes sense that that's where this is going to wrap up. This part of the story is going to wrap up, like the great duel between Grindelwald and Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm. Italian was the 5th, I remembered.
Yeah, so we might be going to Rome or Venice if it's not underwater already. We could be going to a whole bunch of places in Italy. I hope we go to Rome. Oh my God, that would be so awesome.
The Vatican.
Yeah, the Vatican, right? Oh my God, St. Newt. It's going to be awesome. That'd be crazy. Yeah. Is J.K. Rowling J.K. trolling us? Like, she says answers are going to be given. Well, I like to think what J.K. Rowling says is mostly what Dumbledore says. I mean, I know that, yeah, she writes Dumbledore, sure, but like Dumbledore just kind of, the character flows out of her. So I wonder if she's projecting a little Dumbledore here, where she says answers are given, but Dumbledore doesn't ever give answers. We know that from the Harry Potter series. So that's I'm having a hard time
sure
swallowing.
We're going to get answers. We're just going to get a lot more questions with them.
So our second news story is a little fun one, and you will all have to let me know if you're going to check this out. Daniel Radcliffe is starring in a new show. It's a limited series, and it will be premiering on February 12th on TBS, and it's called Miracle Workers. And not only is he starring in it, but he also is an executive producer on it, which is pretty cool. So starring alongside Steve Buscemi, Radcliffe plays Craig, an angel whose low-level job is to answer all of humanity's prayers. However, things don't go to plan when God, played by Buscemi, decides to focus more time on his hobbies than the human race, leaving Craig and Eliza, another angel, in charge of answering a prayer that will prevent the destruction of Earth. So I watched a little trailer. It's like a little 15-second teaser, and Buscemi is basically playing himself as God, and Daniel Radcliffe is playing an angel as he should. And it looks, I don't know, it looks kind of quirky and fun. It looks like it could be it's an interesting concept. I think it could be cute. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how I feel Dan playing opposite of Steve Buscemi. I mean, I love them both. They're both like fantastic actors, and I love that Dan is now just an everyday kind of actor. Like, I think he's definitely at the point in his career where he has the freedom to choose his roles more selectively, and I think that's what he's doing now, because I mean, whenever I visualize God, I don't visualize Steve Buscemi. It's Morgan Freeman, but no? I mean, either way, it's this could be fun. I don't know.
So it's a series, right? Because I saw kind of like a short news article about it, but I didn't click on it or look into it more at the time.
Yeah, it's a limited run series. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes that means, but sounds like it's almost like a mini series type thing.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
Interesting.
It's definitely, I think Dan is picking roles that he knows has an end insight.
Mhm.
But this looks, I mean, it really does. It sounds interesting. It's still kind of hard to swallow. Steve Buscemi as God. Whenever I see him as a Rockhound in Armageddon, I mean, that's fine. But both very dynamic actors. So can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, so it is a 7-episode first season. It may be a second season potentially, but who knows? But it's created by Simon Rich and executive produced alongside Lorne Michaels, Andrew Singer, Daniel Radcliffe, and Owen Wilson.
Oh.
Oh, Buscemi and Wilson teaming up again.
Oh, yeah. So here's the history there. So Daniel Radcliffe and Owen Wilson were supposed to star in it, but then Steve Buscemi replaced Wilson.
Ah, I wonder why. If he's still involved with the project like that.
I know.
Right?
I wonder. I feel like Owen Wilson would be a hilarious God.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
I
Yes.
would watch that for sure.
I would totally watch it. Yeah. I'm afraid Steve
Yeah.
Buscemi's teeth would get in his way or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah. We'll check it out. We'll check back in after February 12th when we all have seen the first episode.
We're going to be like, yeah, we haven't watched it yet.
We'll all attempt. We'll put it off until we finally watch it and season 2's out. So our third news story is kind of more of an announcement, a shout out. So our friend Tyler Starr, who runs the Protego Foundation, they are doing a new campaign. So we wanted to highlight that. So the Protego Foundation is doing a Find Dougal campaign. And it highlights the plight of the chimpanzee and aims to create a little life-saving magic, raising money to support Florida's Save the Chimps sanctuary that provides lifetime care to chimps who come from research laboratories, the entertainment industry, and the pet trade. In the first phase of the campaign, Accio Box, a handmade, artisanal, vegan, and cruelty-free subscription box inspired by the Wizarding World, introduced a Find Dougal detail card and campaign-exclusive shirt in its November boxes. $2 from the cost of each of these boxes was set aside for a total $1,000 donation that will help with the purchase of supplies at the Save the Chimps Sanctuary. So you can check out their Find Dougal campaign online, and it's a great cause, and I think it's really important. So we wanted to give that a shout out, and our friend Tyler.
Yeah. Tyler is doing some amazing work at the Protego Foundation, and we invite you all to go check that out.
That sounds great. I've never heard of that one before, but there's so many amazing organizations inspired by the Potter films or the Wizarding World, so it's really amazing.
Yeah. I mean, so much good has been done in the world already by these foundations and these alliances that it's just wonderful that this series, the 7-book series, has inspired people to go out there and just, do what they can to help change the world and make the world just a little bit of a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the article that went around about how reading Harry Potter makes you a better person? The research article about that.
No, I sure haven't.
I wish I had it at my fingertips, but it's like it is. This is a researched article about how reading it makes you more empathetic, and you can identify with people who are not like you, and so it's a really valuable thing for kids and adults to read. And I mean, evidenced by all these amazing organizations that we're talking about.
All right, so let's move on to an announcement that we have for you guys. Next week's episode is going to be our final show of the year. We're going to take some time off and spend the holidays with our families. So barring any major developments, let me say that again because J.K. Rowling likes to drop stuff on us. Barring any major developments, episode 228 will be released on January 6th. Yeah, we like to enjoy the new year with our loved ones. And some of us are taking off early again, like Bailey here, who's not going to be available next week.
I'm sorry, I'm going on a Christmas vacation to go see a football game.
Yeah, is that what we're calling Luke now? A football game?
I wish I was going to St. Louis. No, I'm going to New Orleans. My mom and I are both going to see the New Orleans Saints and the Steelers play because those are our teams.
Oh, well, that's going to be fun.
So there's a bit of a friendly rivalry going on right now.
Friendly. There's nothing friendly about rivalries in sports, even though we say that there is. Speaking of announcements, Gretchen's got to go. Bye. See you, Gretchen.
Bye, Gretchen.
Later.
Nice to meet you.
Bye, everybody. Have
Bye.
a great episode.
Enjoy your snuggly bed.
Thanks, I will.
You know, if this was like Skype, like I would have just hung up before you had the chance to say anything, but
Bye.
but never mind. Bye, Gretchers. We'll see
Bye,
you later.
guys.
This week's discussion centers around kind of a SWOT analysis. And if you're a marketing major, you're like, oh my God, probably geeking out right now, right? A SWOT analysis identifies several things within the Crimes of Grindelwald film: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that the film franchise faces. So I asked this question on Reddit. If you have the chance, go check it out under the Fantastic Beasts channel. Got a fair amount of responses, and some very good and some very sarcastic, much as you might find on Reddit. But I thought it would be fun to kind of go through these. So what do we all think that the movie did well? What were some of the successes that we can celebrate?
I actually guess maybe I did the entire experience backwards from many other fans because I did read the screenplay before I saw the movie.
Okay, so how did that make going into the movie seem for you? Like, was there a little bit more put into context for you that you had the chance to study that and kind of read that beforehand?
Yeah, I actually, if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing because I felt like reading it beforehand, it took a lot of the shock value out of some of the big reveals. And then I was able to just focus more on what was happening in the movie with the characters and the dialogue and of the film itself. And then I also had the advantage of knowing the identity of some of the characters that they just don't introduce in the movie. So like the elf caretaker of Credence, the half elf, and the beast hunter guy, Grimson. So it gave some context to some of those things. And then I wasn't, sitting in shock, but I did go with a friend who knew nothing about it. And it was pretty entertaining, I have to say, to watch her at the end of the movie, try and compute what was happening.
Right. So for me, I felt the strengths of the film a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I thought the writing was a huge strength and a huge win. Even though it seemed like there was a lot going on, there was a lot of detail, there was a lot of information thrown at us, especially at the end, I thought that it was all justified. And that's part of me trusting that J.K. Rowling is a master storyteller. And I've said that, 1,000 times on the show since we've seen the movie. But that's definitely one of the core strengths, I believe. Another one was the acting. The entire cast was fantastic, and I can't say enough good things about Eddie and Jude. And looking forward to seeing Dumbledore's role increasing in the next movie as well. The music was fantastic, with some very memorable tunes, like we had Hedwig's theme kind of speckled in there a bit, and I'm really surprised about how much I love Dumbledore's theme as well.
Yeah, those are all really good points. I really loved the beasts. That's probably common for people that went and watched the film, but the baby Nifflers were adorable, and seeing Newt's basement was really amazing. So I really enjoyed those two things for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like just the vastness of the magic that we saw in this film, it really is going to set the bar for future films. This isn't a school film anymore. We're not seeing teenagers doing magic. We're seeing adult trained wizards doing magic, and I feel like we're going to see some really cool things moving on.
Yeah, it's casual magic, right? We were introduced to the Harry Potter films, and they were doing classroom magic, much as you said, Bailey. Now it's just like everyday magic. Magic is something that's commonplace in the wizarding world, and it's just we're not used to seeing it. I'm sure after the first two films, we're starting to get, a good idea of how magic is being used in everyday life from these witches and wizards. But, I definitely think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. And it would be enjoyable to see and learn about different types of magic that they use in everyday lives.
As a side note, if people have the screenplay, one of the things that I enjoyed in the screenplay that I thought was a strength was actually the illustrations. So interestingly, the last couple of illustrations after the play is over, there's the Deluminator, and then that Phoenix book that Nicholas Flamel has, and then the last illustration in the book that I see is the Blood Pact. So that was just, that was cool to go through the screenplay as a book and look at all the illustrations and kind of how that even added to the film and the story.
There's a comment by Mandia Astronaut, and they said that the strengths of the movie, they pretty much loved every new major or minor character, and they can't wait to get more of them. At least the ones that are still alive.
Right.
While I like character backstories and things like that, I just don't feel like that we're going to get much beyond the major characters. Like maybe Dumbledore, Newt, maybe Tina, maybe Queenie, and what they went through in between movie 1 and movie 2. Another strength is that the movie doesn't really treat you like a child or waste time explaining everything, much as we said with the magic. We had to have all the magic explained in the Harry Potter films. But the movie really entices you to pay close attention, think on your own, and about how everything connects and works. It's really making you do your homework.
Yeah, I agree about Queenie. She actually was a character in the movie that I thought was a really strong character. And I know some people kind of disagreed with the believability of her character arc, but I thought it was actually really well written and very tragic. It was the only time that I teared up in the film is when she walked through the fire and the look on her face and how painful that was for her. And I actually thought she was portrayed like someone with an illness, kind of like Lupin, who has little or no control over the condition that they have.
Right.
She's got she has the thing where she hears voices, and that's, I think, another like one of the most tragic scenes in the movie where she's sitting on the street with her hands over her ears and she can't control it. And it reminded me of I think it's in the Chamber of Secrets where Ron says to Harry that hearing voices is never a good sign, even in the wizarding world.
No, that's a very good point. And I think we were talking about this in our Slack chat, weren't we, Bailey? Like how, okay, so she's a legilimens and she's probably been around crowds of people before. Why now? Why did it suddenly get to her?
And I think the reason for this is just she's so overwhelmed by losing Jacob, kind of, and she feels like she has no other choice, and she just wants to go see her sister. She can't find her sister, and then all of a sudden she's out in Paris, and she thinks she hears Jacob and Newt walking around, like, somewhere close. She can hear their voices in her head, and she thinks she has to be hallucinating.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that they could possibly be in Paris with her, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was just, I just thought it was so sad. And I remembered from the first movie too, that it seemed like a lot of the people who were really closest to her didn't even kind of take her seriously. So it was almost like a joke when she was reading their minds, or they would say, "Oh, stop it. Kind of like she couldn't, she couldn't control it. It was an inconvenience or just funny. So it actually didn't surprise me that when her abilities were really troubling to her and they had an effect on her life, she almost was kind of homeless wandering around Paris. So it was really believable to me that she would go with a person who seemed to be very sympathetic to her, empathize with her and understand her, and then even value her skills. So I thought that was a strength, and I really hope that, some of her story continues in the next film.
Yeah, it really consumed her, right? We found that out. I mean, it was just, and when something consumes you, especially in the way that it consumed her, it's really not a good thing. We can talk about the obscurus consuming Credence. We can talk about different things like the hatred that Voldemort had in this series, in the Harry Potter films, in the Harry Potter books, that consumed him. So we know that whenever something consumes you like that, it's never ever a good thing.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's related to emotions, so if her emotions were very distressed, and then that type of ability almost turns into something that is controlling her.
Yeah, this movie really makes you think, wonder, theorize, and speculate. Like, there's so many things that we don't know yet, places we don't know how they fit together. And it set up so much from what we learned in this movie, and from Potter lore. There's enormous potential for the future with characters and places. So I'm really interested to see where Queenie's going to be going over the next couple of movies. Let's talk about some of the weaknesses of of the film, and hey, I don't want to be critical. I just want to kind of give it a fair shake. So part of the weaknesses that I had were that some characters just felt like they were there for sake of being there. Like Yusuf Kama, for example. Theseus was another good one. Like, what purposes did these two characters serve that couldn't have been served by another well-established character? And then also, we still have no idea what the actual crimes of Grindelwald are. So that's definitely a weakness. It's very cloudy. I know y'all are laughing.
You mean we need to answer what the movie title is in the movie?
I mean, it would be nice.
I agree.
I found one of his crimes, which I think was probably procuring an illegal wand for Credence, because I can't decide where else he came up with that wand out of his sleeve at the end of the screenplay or the end of the movie. So
no.
sleeve, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
it's fun. I was like, there's one of them. He stole it from Grigorovich, picked up a spare when he when he stole the Elder Wand, right? Like, I'll take that one too for later use. Stick it up my sleeve.
He went to the local Grindel Mart and got the new wand. He's like, hey, what can I get for $1? I just stole this house. I don't have any other money or anything like that. What can you give me for this Fabergé egg?
Yeah, I feel like another big weakness with this movie is we don't get enough explanation for a lot of who these new characters are. And so you're sitting there, if you've not read the screenplay before you go in, going, wait, who the heck is that guy? And I don't know if it's an issue of there was explanation, but it was cut on the cutting room floor, or if it was something where just we don't get it at all. But I feel like there's a lot that is left to be interpreted as you're viewing it, which makes you kind of step back from the story because you're sitting there trying to figure out these things.
Oh, I didn't realize that actually, because I did read the screenplay first until I listened to some podcasts about it. And people are saying, who was this person or who was that person or what happened with this? And I thought, oh, they didn't say that. And I really don't think that they did. I mean, you're right. Like some of that just was not explained. And so it was a weakness because it took your attention away from the storyline because you're just trying to figure out what's happening.
The Deathly Hallows were prominent in almost every single promotional material, but they did not play any part of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't actually think about that. They did, yeah. And they're on the front of the book too. I'm holding it. There's a Deathly Hallows symbol under the Eiffel Tower, actually, right on the front of the book.
The posters and...
Well, and it was introduced at the end of the last film.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Another thing that frustrates me and that I feel was a big weakness was Credence.
Yes.
The Credence subplot was given shockingly little time considering his reveal. And... yeah. It's a major turning point in this series. It's just like, what the heck? Like, we couldn't connect enough with his character and the reveal of him did not carry the emotional weight it should have.
I feel like he barely had any lines. I was just like sitting here trying to think back to what he even said in the whole movie besides, who am I? Are you my mother? I just can't even recall that. So that's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we get from Credence is you're trying to figure out who he is. And then at the end of the movie, it's like, oh, okay, now I know why you're in this movie, because there was that reveal.
Yeah, and there wasn't even a strong reason given at the beginning for why he went on this journey in the first place. I heard some, it wasn't this, it was a different podcast that had someone who'd been on the set, and she saw some art, I guess it was some of the storyboard art about how Credence it did show him like reforming and leaving New York or finding his adoption papers. I mean, there was a lot more story to it, but when we start the movie, we're just right at Grindelwald, and then all of a sudden we're at the circus, and you're thinking, wait, how did he get here? What's going on with this guy? So for him being such a significant part of the end of the movie, there was very little emotional connection to it, like you were saying.
And I think this is something that we might get in deleted scenes or in kind of a featurette on the DVD. Credence leaves New York, and then it's going to show, flashback to storyboards or something. that really never came to fruition within the studio itself. Or maybe they even shot the thing, but they didn't put it in.
Yeah, maybe they did.
Yeah, I think they just tried to stuff way too much content into this movie and had to make a lot of cutting decisions.
Yeah, the runtime was definitely too short for what the movie really wanted to convey.
Yeah, there were so many characters. I mean, it just seemed impossible because there were so many storylines going on at the same time. I also thought that we're talking about Credence. I thought that the ending was actually a weakness for the movie. Because just compared to, I guess it's bad. Well, I don't know if it's bad. It's, you kind of compare them back to the Potter books because it is J.K. Rowling and we have a certain expectation of her storytelling. And there are big reveals in the Potter books, but usually the endings are fairly, you're left with some questions, but they're wrapped up. And when my son read the screenplay, he described it as a kick you off the cliff ending.
Not even a cliffhanger, just like get the hell off the cliff.
Yeah,
right?
Not a cliffhanger, but kick you off the cliff. And he was so frustrated. He actually closed the book and stomped on it when he was done with it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Out of control, right? But I think it was just some of us felt like that in the theater, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we got way too little time with any of the characters. Even Newt, I feel like we were still, just kind of begging for more Newt time. And then, most of the subplots felt underdeveloped to a minor or major degree. We were just left, with our, it was like, I feel like the little Dutch boy sticking his finger in the dam, It's just like, yeah, there's all this information that wants to come out, but we can't release it yet. We can't, put it out.
Well, Credence did bust up the mountain at the end of the book, so you're probably going to get that eventually. You better get out of the way and get your finger out before he blows the mountain off at you. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, you're right.
But yeah, it was confusing. I thought the ending was confusing and kind of unsatisfying. And then for really hardcore Potter fans, it left people with a lot of potential inconsistencies with the original series. So I think that, that was part of the weakness. It wasn't almost like a wanting more. It was more like people were just angry about some of it. So it gives us a lot to talk about. But I do, I kind of wish there'd been a more, just kind of a better resolution at the end of the movie.
Well, it ties into the opportunities as well. Like the overload of information from the screenplay is a huge opportunity, and it may make sense on paper, but whenever it translates to the screen, there's other factors you got to take into consideration, and the story may not adapt well. That you can do as much as you can, like in post production and clip editing and things like that. But I don't know.
I see what you're saying. It's like in some ways making that many storylines. It's like I would almost hate to see the character map of this. I just imagine like this gigantic spider web all over the page that you can barely see where all the plot lines are going, and it's an opportunity because it's a huge story. And so there are so many pieces of it to tell. But the danger of that is maybe it, like you said, it doesn't translate well to a 2-hour movie.
Exactly. Now, a lot of people feel that if these were novels first, that the novel to film adaptation would have been a little bit better because we have some of the context behind what was going on at that point. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. There's definitely going to be some things that you have to cut and think about runtime.
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite things about these films is that we don't have books that we're going on, because I can sit there and enjoy the film for exactly what it is, and I'm not sitting there constantly in my head going, oh, well, that was different from the book, and that was different, and oh, that was better, but most of it was really worse than what it was in the book. So I think that that's a great strength to this series as well.
Yes, times 1,000. I cannot be more on board with this. I enjoy these films for what they are. And hey, this is coming from somebody that didn't even like the first Fantastic Beasts film. Like I
didn't either. I almost didn't go see the second one because I didn't like the first one.
Yeah. Now, Elizabeth, since you're one of the first outside people that we're having on the show after the movie came out, were you hesitant in seeing this because of the Johnny Depp debacle, or was it what David Yates had said?
No, I wasn't necessarily hesitant because of that. I don't know. I don't go see a lot of movies. I just don't have time. So if I go see a movie, it's a very kind of special, out of the way thing to do.
Right.
And I decided to go see it because my son that I keep talking about wanted to see it so much. And so that's why I got the screenplay first and read it. And then I thought, all right, I'm going to go see it and see what I think, and if he could watch it or not. And I also, I mean, I know that the Johnny Depp thing, it wasn't necessarily a factor for me, but it definitely was for a lot of other people. But I really enjoy watching Eddie Redmayne and his portrayal of Newt Scamander. So I probably would have ended up going to see the movie just based on that, because I think he just does such an amazing job, and I appreciate what he brings to the character that isn't shown when you just read the book.
Had there been a runtime of an additional 30 minutes, would that have been enough to flesh out some of the scenes and characters, motivations, subplots, and improve the pacing and the final review of the movie? Or are we comfortable with the way that it happened?
I mean, that's a good question. It's hard to say. It's kind of like, what character would you have picked to make that last 30 minutes or extra 30 minutes worth it in terms of the time commitment? But I don't know. I kind of always like seeing more of whatever Wizarding World movies they do, so I wouldn't have had a problem with it being longer.
Yeah, no,
I feel like they could have let a lot more scenes breathe and explained quite a bit more and left us hanging less.
Yeah, I just was interested in the kind of what we talked about a little bit is some of the magic in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the opportunities I think I saw with that was just how you can, how she's able to just give more and more to the magic of the Fantastic Beasts movies. And she also, I thought, a big opportunity. I read some on her website, which I'm sure other people have too, about what the narrative of the Fantastic Beasts story is about and how it's so different from the Potter books. And she said it's really focused on the theme of what makes something a beast, which I thought was really fascinating, and thinking about each character in the Fantastic Beasts stories and whether or not that character is or isn't becoming a beast, becoming more beast or more human, depending on their actions and motivations. So I think that a lot of the film choices we were talking about, they were risky with cutting things out and making the jumps that we were discussing. But I think it's a huge opportunity for her to tell that story.
I would also agree with an opportunity lies within the magic. And since it is used as casually as it is, we are left with questions such as this whole blood pact thing. How does that actually work? Is it that he can't go near Grindelwald? He can't say his name more than 3 times. We don't know how that piece of magic works. And I mean, Dumbledore being Dumbledore, I bet he knows how to destroy it. And I'm sure that he will, if he doesn't, he will find out very quick on how to destroy it. But it's also, does he want to destroy it? That's one of the questions of that blood pact. That blood magic is what I'm going to start calling it. We know that blood magic is very, very strong. So I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be transferred via like you're going with like you're doing, what is it called, like a blood brother or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it we've seen it happen in other parts of the Wizarding World before. With this protection magic that Lily provided Harry with. That Voldemort didn't quite know about. So, I'm kind of curious as to how that whole bit about the blood magic and the blood pact is going to play out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that moves well into the idea of the threats, because in all those opportunities that she took with the magic, I think there's a lot of threats of not being able to explain it or connect it, I guess, satisfactorily for Potter fans to the rest of the books. Like, I know there was complaints about the Accio spell and how Newt could just Accio the Niffler when they're not supposed to be able to, I guess, Accio live things. And then there was the McGonagall timeline and a number of other things like that I think when when you're trying to connect it to the two books, that creates a lot of complications to the story.
Absolutely agree. And as a threat to the franchise, let's go ahead and move into threats. Yeah, I mean, if things don't connect, canon just ultimately goes out the window, and we can't theorize accurately, because that's what we do is we use the information based out of canon to form our theories and our different thoughts and project them out in the form of this podcast. Well, the entire Harry Potter fandom does the same exact thing. They might not use the same exact outlets, but they voice their opinions on like message boards and things like that. Well, they wouldn't be able to get into an argument if canon can't hold its weight in water anymore. If J.K. Rowling just kind of goes in and just throws canon out the window, which I hope she doesn't do anymore in the Fantastic Beasts film franchise, because it's confusing enough having McGonagall there when she's supposed to be there. It's confusing enough having like all of these questions that we have and not being able to answer them with canon answers, It's I don't accept that this happened because J.K. Rowling wanted it to happen. No, this happened because something else further down the line happened, and this is just the first in a many series of events.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why I said I'm a little bit afraid to know the answers in terms of the answers that she's promising for the next few books, because I really do believe she is a master storyteller, like you were saying that she is. But I also think people, including myself, have known these books for 20 years, and we are used to those detailed storylines and having answers to so many things in the canon and the way that we can discuss it, that it does create a little bit of a shaky foundation in terms of her going forward with some of the things that we've seen emerge in the Crimes film.
Now, outwardly, as a franchise, it's safe to say that Warner Brothers is going to be doing some recalibrating on the remaining movies to ensure that the remaining films are going to make as much money as they possibly can. And we know that was a big opportunity with this previous movie. With The Crimes of Grindelwald. Now, that starts with filling seats in the movie theater. Immediate threats to this franchise are J.K. Rowling not having as much free reign as she has in the past, or Warner Brothers condensing or canceling one or more of these movies. And then, lastly is, if Warner Brothers is looking for another success and another golden child, such as the Harry Potter franchise was, this is not the film series they're going to be finding that in.
Yeah, I think one of the threats that I saw really connects to that, the idea that you said of the franchise and making money, and if they have to recalibrate or scale back, then that's going to be possibly detrimental. The film used such over-the-top magic and special effects. It might be really hard to follow in the other films if they have to scale back the budget. I know that the opening scene with the Thestral carriage was I thought one of the best movie openings and special effects that I've seen in a long time. And when my son read that scene in the screenplay, he said, I mean, who needs Avada Kedavra when you can be that awesome?
That is great. I love it.
He's got a point.
Doesn't he? I know. And I just thought the thing is, I mean, it's true. And can that level of awesome really be maintained through 3 more films with some of these other potential hurdles? And I think that's probably a real concern.
I mean, I think if the box office continues to decline in a trend like it did with these first 2 films, that it could honestly stop the series completely. I think that they might not want to invest that much money if it's not going to be a huge cash cow.
Yeah, and I think they are expecting that bit of Potter magic to kind of carry over, and it's not going to happen. This movie fell after 2 weeks to the number 4 slot, and it's, like I said 2 weeks ago, it's hard for a number 4 movie to work its way back up to number 1. I mean, I'm looking at the Let's see, I'm looking at the November updates right now. 26-day total for The Crimes of Grindelwald domestically is 146.8 million, and the entire domestic gross for the first movie was 234 million. Now,
Wow.
yeah, this is, I mean, it's kind of sad. Like I said, it's probably going to crawl to a $700 million stop at the box office. It is the bulk of this movie, 74.3%. Came from a foreign worldwide release. It's earned $571 million right now worldwide. It didn't quite capture a number one spot at all, which is a first for any of the Wizarding World franchise. The closest it got was number 2 for Catherine Waterston, who is who is Tina, but that's about it. I just, like, it's disappointing. It really is. I expected a lot more, especially out of the marketing that they were pumping out for this movie.
Yeah, I agree. That's really surprising. When I did go see the movie, granted it was in the middle of the day, maybe I guess a week or two after it came out. We were the only 2 people in the theater besides one other person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I found it surprising. So I wondered. I know you all have talked about it a little bit before, but just what that was related to, because it seemed like such a huge downturn from other Potter films.
And its production budget was $200 million. So domestically, it hasn't even made its budget. I mean,
wow.
We go off of the worldwide release. Sure, that's fine. It's already made it, but that's really disappointing. I mean, and to be fair, okay, it cost the first movie $180 million to make, and domestically they made $234 million. So not that far above it, maybe like $50 million above it. But this one hasn't even cracked that level yet. Like, it hasn't even met its budget domestically, and that is disappointing.
Yeah, and I think, as you were asking, just as a casual viewer, one of the first outside people that you've had on this show, for me, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a good film, but it wasn't the same as the magic of Harry Potter. And I almost had to kind of separate it from that and try not to mix it too much in terms of the standards of what I was looking for in the movie, and just try and enjoy it for what it was itself, and not always be wishing it was another Harry Potter film, because I really don't think that's what it is. And Jo hasn't even indicated that it has the same themes, and it's certainly set in the same time, but I don't think it has the same intentions as the Potter films did, or really the same magic.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're expecting, as fans, we're expecting kind of that same piece of magic, and I feel like that's where the division in the fandom is right now, as it stands, is that people are expecting this to be something that it's not. And I mean, it's something that the fandom has to work through together, has to talk through it, has to write and read many articles before we're able to accept, that this is not the same franchise. It ties into the Harry Potter movies and books and things like that, but there's many questions that we have to answer before that level is achieved. And the more questions there are to answer, the more frustrated people are going to get. And especially if we have to wait 2 years between movies,
Right.
Okay, so any final thoughts on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of the movie, or just, the film in general?
I mean, you just mentioned the 2-year wait. It really makes me think that could honestly be a huge threat, that they're doing 2 years between each of these films. I think people are going to get bored if they continue to do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's my point too, right? Because between the Harry Potter films, we got maybe a year and a half, if that. I mean, and as we were talking on previous episodes, it would really make sense for them to move up the third movie to the summertime, because the summertime, kids are out of school. People are out of, most people are out of school. And it's a fun time for families to take vacations and things like that. Well, why not kick off your vacation with the viewing of the newest Fantastic Beasts film? And I think that would do wonders for the box office if they were to have done that. Maybe open it up on a Wednesday night in the middle of the summer, like in July, and see what that does. And I guarantee you're probably going to hit that $143 million mark by the first 10 days, at least.
Yeah, you're right about the slow pace of that. Because, with the Potter movies, at least we had the books, so there was some speculation on, how is this film going to match up to the books? And it gave it a little bit more of a lead up, I think.
Yeah.
Where this one, all there is to wait for is the next movie. There's nothing additional besides that.
Okay, well, wonderful discussion there. If you have any questions or thoughts, we invite you to send us an email, a tweet, a Facebook message, any way you can get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to answer your question or read your comment on the show. Let's go into a couple of games we have planned for you guys this week. The first game is Two Truths and a Lie. So we're going to let our guest go first.
All right, so here we go. My family dressed as Harry Potter characters for Halloween. We took my son to Universal Studios for his birthday. I have 2 Harry Potter Christmas trees in my house.
Oh my gosh. These are all like very plausible things.
It's based around holidays, right? It's a holiday, Two Truths and a Lie.
I think I'm going to have to go with the fact that you don't have 2 Harry Potter Christmas trees in your house.
That's what I was going to lean towards too. I think maybe 1.
I have 2 Harry Potter Christmas trees in my house.
We were wrong.
Nice.
Oh my God, Bailey.
I will post them for you.
Wow. We'd love to share those.
One of them belongs to my son, and it's a mini tree in his room, and the other one is a slightly larger mini tree that is with our other tree in the main part of my house. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So what is the
So
lie?
do you want me to tell you the lie?
Yeah.
The lie is we did not take him to Universal Studios for his birthday. We had a Harry Potter party for his birthday last year, which was pretty epic. And we did dress up as Harry Potter characters for Halloween. We actually won costumes to be able to do that. So I was McGonagall and my husband was the Sorting Hat.
That's cool.
And then my son was Harry and my daughter was Hermione. And our 5-year-old rebelled and was Captain America.
Aw. I love Captain America too, so that's kind of a hard decision.
Yeah, it's a solid
Right?
choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Solid choice. He's an Avengers fanatic, but he
Aw.
does know all about Harry Potter because of my older son. Yes.
So Bailey, what about you?
All right. I ordered 7 Harry Potter Funkos today. I caved and opened up the entire Funko Harry Potter Advent Calendar already. And Hedwig is my favorite Harry Potter Funko.
It's a Funko edition.
It sure is.
Well, okay, so I believe that you ordered 7 Harry Potter Funkos today. I believe that you caved and opened up the entire Advent calendar. That's no question. That is the solid truth, I bet. But I refuse to believe that Hedwig is your favorite Funko.
I only met you today, so I'm trying to figure out.
You're at a disadvantage
I'm
here.
at a huge disadvantage, but you were too. So I think that you didn't cave and open your Advent calendar. I think you're waiting.
Elizabeth is correct. I have only opened 1 per day.
Do I even know you, Bailey? I mean, come on.
You know, I did open up my entire sock advent calendar because they were really poorly divided, so they were all like falling into the other holes I had already opened.
You know,
So I did open that all the way.
you know, Sydney, who's listening to us on Patreon right now, opened hers because she has no self-control.
Well, and not to mention, those things are really difficult to open. Like trying to punch through the perforated cardboard, I seriously have to like punch the box. So I was like, this is too much effort. I'm just going to rip all of the socks out at once.
Oh, please.
I have to admit that I have been watching those videos of people opening their calendars because I just kind of like to know like I read the screenplay before I saw the movie. I must have a thing about needing to know in advance what's going to occur with my Harry Potter fandom.
For yourself, apparently.
I don't. That's true. I don't protect. I don't like it. I need to know the secrets.
Can never surprise yourself. All right. Well, I guess it's my turn. I was once a chauffeur for Ellie Darcy Alden, who played young Lily Potter in the films. I didn't see Deathly Hallows until 3 weeks after it came out, and I have sang with Darren Criss, which is the lie.
I'll let Elizabeth go first.
All right. The lie is that you didn't see Deathly Hallows until 3 weeks after it came out.
You must be a Hogwarts radio listener or something like that.
I'm a Legilimens. I forgot to tell you before.
Oh, see?
That's why I love it.
And we already had this conversation in our Slack chat, so I did not comment.
I have. In fact, last year I was a chauffeur for Ellie and her mom, which was such a wonderful thing down in Florida. It was, I got to pick her up at the airport at like 5 a.m. I got to drop her off at the airport like at 3 a.m. or something like that. It was crazy, but it was so worth it. And they're just, the Darcy Aldens are such amazing people. And Ellie is so sweet as well. That was just a fun experience. I saw Deathly Hallows actually like 3 days before it came out or something like that. Some crazy amount. But I also saw it in Orlando, Florida with the rest of the Harry Potter fandom at LeakyCon, and that by far is like one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And then in 2009, I did sing with Darren Criss. We were chilling out in the hall of the park, in one of the halls in the Park 55 Hotel, and he had his guitar out, and we were just like jamming out to DuckTales. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Those are good ones. You've like yours is the theme of famous people.
Well, we do have one more game before we get out of here, and that is our Avada Kedavra, Amortentia, and Imperio, the Wizarding World's version of Screw, Marry, Kill. So I'm going to give my 3 to Bailey. Bailey, you'll give your 3 to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, you will give your 3 to me. So, Bailey, here's your 3. I'm going to go with Dobby the House Elf. Young Dumbledore, and Graves.
Oh, goodness. Well, Dobby's already dead, so sorry.
Dobby is not dead. Dobby is alive and well.
Dobby always lives on. But I'm going to have to Avada Kedavra Dobby. I'm going to Amortentia Graves and Imperio Dumbledore to go convince people to do questionable things, because he likes to do that anyways.
I love it.
All right, Elizabeth, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, we have Fred Weasley, George Weasley,
Oh no.
and Percy Weasley.
Oh, the Weasley Brothers edition.
I have to decide what to do with all the Weasleys. Let's see. I'm going to Avada Kedavra Percy. Sorry, Percy. One of my favorite characters, but I really wanted the twins to be able to live together.
We're going to have to tag Chris in this episode.
I have to change the story, though. If I kill one of the twins, it's just the same as what happened in the book.
True story.
So
True story.
Has to be different. Has to be different in the books. And then I'm going to Imperio George, so he can make jokes all the time and give me cool stuff from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. And then I'll Amortentia Fred.
Aww.
All right, are you ready for yours?
I was born ready. Let's do it.
You're born ready? Okay, mine is the trio of Lupin, Sirius, and James.
Oh, okay. Well, they're all dead anyway, so according to Bailey's reasoning, I'll just Avada Kedavra them all. Good night, everybody. No, I'm kidding.
That's right. They're all dead, so you might as well just kill them all anyway.
All right, so I am going to kill James because I've really never felt a connection to James at all. I mean, you're sure he was Harry's dad, and I kind of, Harry never grew up with a dad, but he had plenty of father figures in his life, so I'm going to have to kill James. I will Amortentia Lupin because Lupin's dreamy. I don't have any solid reasoning behind that, but I really like Lupin. I really do.
I mean, he's the
love
nicest
Lupin.
one. I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah. And I would Imperio Sirius because, man, that guy gets into trouble all the time. So why not? It's just kind of like one of those things. Yeah, sure, he's already bad. Let's make him do like even worse things. Or
you could Imperio him to do good things.
Yeah, but he's serious. I mean, serious and good they don't go.
So even Imperioed, he can't kind of go against his general nature.
Oh my God.
Of getting in trouble.
You know what? I would have him I would Imperio him, have him turn into an animagus, into his dog form, and just sit at my neighbor's door and just bark. My neighbor likes to play the drums. So yeah. I would have. That's what I'd have.
You must not like your neighbor very much.
Yeah, I don't like my neighbor at all. I hope he's listening. Hi. Anyway, that's how we play Avada Kedavra, Amortentia, and Imperio. And that's how we do it on this week's episode. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time, and it's been so much fun to talk about the wizarding world with Hogwarts Radio. I didn't tell my son that I was going to be a guest, so I can't wait to see his face when I turn on the podcast on Sunday.
Oh, my goodness.
Aw, that's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun. I told him if he was good tonight going to bed that I might tell him in the morning what I was going to do tonight.
Ooh, just tell him I got to hang out with some pretty cool people.
I think I will, and then I'm just going to push play on Sunday and
there you go.
To watch how excited he is. Yes.
Well, do you have anything that you want to plug or advertise?
Oh, well, this is definitely shameless self-promotion, but I am hardly ever on Twitter, and I posted a video of my son singing his parody that he wrote of the 12 Days of Christmas Fantastic Beasts version. And it would really actually mean a lot to him if there were more people that watched it and commented on it, because he was so excited to share that.
Aww.
And I don't really know how anyone could resist a song about nifflers and Christmas trees. So definitely go and give it a watch. And there is a niffler in my Harry Potter Christmas tree at my house. So yes, and my Twitter handle is My Little Melody S.
That's MYLITTLEMELODYS. Yeah.
Yes. And I really shouldn't have killed Percy, because Chris was the Harry Potter character that commented on this post and absolutely made my son's life. So, but I'm sure that, he'll forgive me. So,
well, we'll be sure to give him a couple of plugs on our social outlets as well, so he can.
Yeah, he was so sweet about it. It was just like the best comment. So it made my day too. It was really amazing. So go enjoy some 12 Days of Christmas Fantastic Beasts. And it's been awesome to talk with you guys tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you to all of our patrons who continue to support the podcast. Without you, we couldn't keep this podcast going. So if you're not a patron, head over to patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio to get started today. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, give us a like on Facebook, and let all your friends know where you can find us anywhere podcasts are aggregated. We've had quite a few new listeners as well, commenting on our social outlets. So welcome, and we hope that we don't bore you too much. But that does it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Terrence Pinkston.
And I'm Bailey Riddle.
And we'll be back for our year-in review show next week on episode 227. Bye-bye, everybody.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.